Hello, I'm Victoria Ballou, publisher of Astrologic magazine. Today, I'm thrilled to invite you to sit back and absorb all the insights financial astrologer Barry Rosen has to offer. He shares his broad insights every month in Astrologic magazine in his exclusive category, Astrofinance, giving all our readers a look at what's coming for the month ahead. Today, he's diving even deeper with his expertise and wisdom. Barry has been involved with financial astrology since 1987 and is the leading Vedic financial astrologer in the world and has spoken several times at the British Association of Vedic Astrology, the United Astrology Conference, and the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference on financial astrology. He has published numerous articles on the topic in leading journals, including NCGR Journal and Gann and Elliott Wave. He has appeared twice on the cover of Timer Digest as a major market timer in his field. More recently, he has been focused on the spiritual and psychological dimensions of Vedic astrology. Information is included in his newsletter or check his website on the Live Webinars tab. If you have questions, type them into the area that is called questions, and Barry will answer them at the end or if he takes a break. And as a reminder, this episode of Astro Finance is being recorded so you can replay it at any time. Hello, Barry.
Thank you, Victoria. That's so great of you to introduce me. Welcome to case studies. I'm going to go off camera here just to make the screen bigger. Let's see. And Victoria is also going to be turning her camera off. So, I want to make sure you're seeing my slideshow, and I'm going to scroll through it. The other day it wasn't scrolling. So, are we seeing the word acknowledgement?
We are seeing acknowledgments.
Okay, good. So great. So GoToWebinar has this new format. I'm still getting used to it. They tried to make themselves like Zoom, and I'm still getting used to it. So today is a preview of our upcoming class called Case Studies in Financial Astrology. We have, this is an actual first class. What I usually do is I usually have a real class, and I also want to give people a taste for what I do. And so it's giving you a little bit of an overview of the class and what I do. And at the same time, for most people who've enrolled, it is a real first class. And we have some of our students attending today. I probably will go about an hour and a half. Sometimes on Thursdays I run out of steam a little bit sooner, but I will try to finish on time. I stand on the shoulders of many, many great teachers, and I have to thank all of them. My contact information, this is my office number. You can also reach me at support@appliedvedicastrology.com. I do have a Facebook site, Financial Astrology by Barry Rosen, also on my website, which is under construction, appliedvedicastrology.com. Yeah, sometimes I get winded and I will take questions, and I will let you know when I take questions, and I will unmute you. Victoria just introduced me, so we don't have to do that again. Those of you who like to read, this is my latest book, Finding Your Blind Spots Using Vedic Astrology. It's on Amazon. It is in a print version and a PDF. I usually do some Vedic chanting. The tradition of Vedic astrology comes from an ancient tradition, and I'd like to honor it. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Vakritunda Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprabha, Nirvigyam Kurame Deva, Sarvakaresh Sarvada. Okay, so just some shameless plugs here. So I do a monthly Astrofinance webinar that's available by subscription for $99. The next one will be Thursday, July 16th at 2 p.m. And these are the dates for the additional ones. They're usually the second or third Thursday of the month, depending on the calendar that month. You can sign up at appliedvedicastrology.com. If you decide to take my class on case studies, you do get these sessions for free. It becomes part of our practicum. Um, I do publish a financial newsletter actually twice a day, and this is for my astrology students. I give a $200 discount. It comes out to about $2 a day, and forecasts change. The markets are totally crazy, even on a daily basis. So I suggest you always keep up with me that way. Those of you who want to study for the first time since 2019, I'm teaching Vedic astrology from the beginning. And when I teach it, it's kind of advanced beginning. Even if you know Vedic astrology, a lot of my old students are taking it because it's deep, rich psychological, archetypal information. I do teach prediction, but I'm really more about teaching it on a deeper level. The current class, actually, it's now starting on July 9th. Or July 8th, I believe it is, July 8th. We do have people enrolled, and you can go to my website if you're interested in it. But it's a nice opportunity. I love teaching astrology. And then I finally teaching 3 classes this summer, I guess, with Jupiter and Cancer. So preview of my Western and Vedic remedies class is on Saturday, June 27th at 11:30. Again, the newsletter has details for signing up on GoToWebinar. Okay, so no shameless plugs here. You came here. So the course is is going to continue every Thursday at 2 p.m. except when we do the monthly magazine. And at the end of the webinar, you'll receive an email with a copy of the videotape, and there'll be information on how to sign up. The course, this is the 3rd financial astrology course I've taught in a series. I've taught, again, I specialize in financial astrology. I've taught personal financial astrology in 2 courses called Money Karma 1 and Money Karma 2. This is more about markets, behavior, and specifically, this is investment astrology. It's how we use astrology to predict the markets. And everybody's interested in that, which is a lot of why you're here. I've been doing this since 1987, which is kind of unbelievable, almost going 40 years. And that's why I'm one of the top people in the world, and I've seen everything. Obviously, this is a very rich field, and it tracks everybody. Everybody's interested in the markets, and attracts the smartest people in the world. Astrology gives you a little bit of an edge because you can explain how that works today. But you still have to know all the other things. You have to understand market patterns. You have to understand fundamentals. You have to understand technicals and how markets behave. When I first started this field, I was trading and I didn't know all those other things. I knew astrology and I could predict things with astrology, and I made a lot of mistakes in my first year of trading because I was just using astrology. So it's very important to learn get all the tools that are involved, and they're not that hard to learn. This course kind of has kind of a cookbook orientation. We'll spend about 5 weeks on the stock market, and I've taught the stock market before, but we'll go into using dashas in the stock market, looking at individual stocks and the challenges of predicting individual stocks. We'll look at how to predict the general stock market and all kinds of wonderful things. So we have a week on the bond market and interest rates, a week on grains, which are very easy to trade and a good beginning market for many people. Week on metals, which are very popular, going to be hot over the next couple of years. Cryptos, everybody wants to know cryptos. And kind of closing with currencies in foreign countries. Currency trading is the biggest commodity or vehicle traded around the world. In the United States, for some reason, people are not interested in currencies because the dollar is king. But when the dollar is not king, then you really need to know your foreign currency trading. So it's a new thing that I'm going to be studying here, and then we'll have a wrap. It's about a 12-week class. It may start next week. It may end up starting after the July 4th weekend because everybody starts going away for the holidays. So I have to make a final decision on that. You can sign up at appliedvedicastrology.com under the financial astrology tab, and you'll get information afterwards. Okay, we're done with shameless plugs. So let's get to some information. Money and spirituality. So I like usually people don't connect those two together, but money is energy, and spirituality is the basis of abundance. And the key to being successful with money is tithing. I have a lecture on that in my Money Karma course. We have to kind of regularly give to charities and help others. And then as we give, so shall we receive. And particularly with speculation, investment astrology, we invest because we want to have money for retirement. And that's a little bit more sattvic. Investing has turned into gambling. How can I make, double my money on Micron in the next 2 weeks? It's turned into gambling a little bit, and it's very attractive on that level, but eventually what goes up must come down. So the key is that you have to kind of give back. If you study financial astrology, you have to kind of maybe tithe 20% of your earnings from what you gain back to the universe, to your favorite charities, because the universe doesn't exist in a vacuum. Investment is the fifth house. The fifth house is kind of in the category of games and sports. Even it's kind of, for a lot of people, investment's a passion. It's a game, and you have to. It doesn't have, again, except if you're investing in your retirement fund, it doesn't have any kind of long-term value if you start getting into gambling. So you always have to give back with it. I began my career in astrology because I was interested in financial astrology, although I was interested in people too. And then I started moving more toward also doing consultations for people. And my real passion now is doing spiritual and psychological astrology. But I have this 40 years experience with financial astrology, and I still have a business forecast market timing that came out of my original work in that area. Financial astrology requires a lot of conscious discipline. It's not, some people are attracted to studying it because they think they can get rich quick. The smartest people in the world are attracted to the markets, and you really have to know a lot to kind of, stay solvent, and learn how to manage your money. And we may have to have a reminder about that. And wealth is not just money per se. The Vedic texts talk about the 8 aspects of Lakshmi, which includes health, success, happiness, ability to fulfill your desires, friendliness, courage, talent, and memory of one's spiritual source. And a lot of those things get lost in today's world. And if we don't have our health, all the money in the world doesn't mean anything. But having beautiful relationships is an aspect of wealth. Having friendliness and being able to fulfill your desires is important. I have a whole lecture on this, but it's very important to kind of remember that wealth is more than money, physical money. Why do we want more money? Safety, security. There's all this kind of illusion about wealth. If we think we have lots of money, we'll be happy. I have Rahu in the second house. I'm certainly always attracted to more money. But there is kind of a craving thing about it. Our highest vision is that we should want to be a philanthropist and share whatever wealth we can make with others in the universe, because we're not here to kind of accumulate all the money in the world and hide out and buy our own private island and hide out. We're here to kind of help others and contribute. So if you have a vision for wealth, and even in taking this course, please think bigger than that. Financial astrology really covers maybe 3 areas. This course is on investment astrology, timing markets, using astrology. We have to watch out for gambling. Personal finance, I have 2 courses on that on my website, Money Karma 1 and Money Karma 2, which I developed because people want to know how to increase their finances. In my remedy course this summer, we're going to have a couple lessons on remedies for finance, because everybody, there are a lot of psychological blocks around money that people have. Sometimes it's with savings, and sometimes it's about earning money. Sometimes it's doing work that you enjoy and making money from it. There's a whole kind of slew of things that can develop. And then a course that I haven't taught yet, which may come up in my series on mundane astrology, predicting world events and countries and presidents. I'm one of the top people in the world on this. I almost stopped doing it because you can't make anybody happy, and there's all these X factors with it, because there is some free will, even though it seems like a lot of things are kind of preordained to unfold in the world. But my monthly broadcasts do cover a lot of mundane astrology, again, looking at President Trump's chart, the US chart, Iran's chart, and things like that. So if you're interested in those things, we are not going to cover those today or in this course, but we do cover them. They will cover them in the course because the practicum does cover them every month. And it's important to kind of have a sense. I don't think, even though the peace accord, we talked for a couple months that Venus conjunct Jupiter, which we had on the 9th of June, has often been a signature for peace, and we still have Venus with Jupiter together in Cancer. We did get an accord signed yesterday. Whether it will last, we don't know. I don't really think it will last, but I think maybe for a month we're okay. So it's important to kind of understand the world and the world of charts to kind of have a sense of the marketplace. So what can we do today? Today I can maybe give you a little bit of taste of the course and give you some examples of the type of things that we can do. Maybe review some of the material from a couple of the other financial astrology classes in the series. Those are available to buy too, although I have to list them more readily on my website. We'll talk a little bit about connecting price, pattern, and time. So analysts like to make charts of, daily charts and hourly charts to see what price is doing. They then examine patterns that result from these. And then some people are market timers. There's seasonal patterns that, for this commodity or the stock market. And astrology is obviously connected to timing. The value of astrology and adding it to technical analysis is that we may think it's going up forever, but then we can see in the astrology that all the things that were making it go up are suddenly shifting, and some negative cycles in astrology is coming. And so everybody thinks it's still going to the moon. You get on TV and it's going to the moon, and you can see if you chart time that, well, we're suddenly going to hit, things are shifting. It's not going to go to the moon anymore. So you get out partial profits, or you put your stops in place. And one of the things that we want to do today is how we combine astrology with technical analysis and pattern to see how we can kind of integrate and make decisions around this. Again, astrology is helpful. I used to, when I started out, I thought it was the only thing. I was very naive. The essence of being successful in investing is money management. Do you bet the whole farm on one stock? Do you buy? No, you divide your money into 10 parts, and you have 10 different positions, and you diversify so that you have some metals, and you have some stocks, and you have some interest rate vehicles, and you have some cryptos. But you don't bet everything on one thing, because if as sure a bet as cryptos are, suddenly they're down this year, and we can see that. But somebody needs to turn their mic off, by the way. You should be muted. Sure enough, cryptos can, everything changes. So we never bet everything on one vehicle. And then whenever we take a trade, we have to actually take a 10% stop loss. And people are very not disciplined about doing that. Oh, it's going up. I don't need to stop. If I go a stop, I'll never get back in again. Well, suddenly something changes and it's down 50%. And you like, well, it's going to go back up. I'll keep it for another 2 or 3 years, and it'll go back up. Well, what if the whole stock market's topping this year? And it is. Will it ever go back up? So you see, you've got to it's a very tricky game. It's all about money management. So people are sometimes wondering how this course is different from my past courses. Some of you have taken my financial astrology classes on investment. This one is different in that I have a lot more technology behind me. I'm going to be pulling in charts and, having live charts that I can pull in, and there's a lot more. When I first taught this in 2016, I wasn't even very good at pasting in charts into a PowerPoint, so I didn't have a lot of examples. So I've pulled my previous courses from the market, although the knowledge is amazing. And so in a sense, I've been starting to redo everything this year with this new series on financial astrology. Again, for those of you who haven't been taking all my financial astrology classes, I will supplement your journey with me by giving you some of those extra tapes for free if there's kind of an area that you need to catch up on that's important. So do feel good about asking if you do want to study this material. So one of the challenges of financial astrology is that the past does not repeat exactly. One of the things that I try to do is next week we have a square, which is a 75% aspect between Neptune and the Sun, between Pisces and Gemini. And we had that same square last year. And last year when we had that square, the stock market made a 12-day low. And, that was contextual to what was going on then. And, we take that, ideally, if you're and we could probably do this way with AI better. We look at, 12 examples or 10 examples of Sun square Neptune, and, you're not going to find that many between Pisces and Gemini because Neptune just went into Pisces last year or so. And so you can look at squares between Aquarius and Taurus, but that kind of thing. But things never repeat exactly. Sometimes there's a new nakshatra, sometimes there's a new sign. But if you're empirical, you try to kind of develop as many examples as you can to feel more confident about it. For time's sake lately, sometimes I always look at the last year, but I'll show you some examples of how we can kind of try to pull things together. I think it's very important to rely on pattern more than astrology. And what happens now, we've had these war markets. Gann, very famous trader of the century, best trader of the century, there's a legend about him, used to say that there are regular markets and there are war markets, and those are also maybe weather markets where a headline we have been in a war market, and the headlines change, and oil goes up, and the headlines change, the oil goes down, and at those times the astrology doesn't work as well. Although I sometimes still see these periods where it works still 80% of the time. So it's still helpful, but I also rely on pattern. If the pattern is suggesting it's going to go lower and the pattern's not done with the, then I'm not going to think that the astrology maybe is giving us a bounce for some bullish energy, but it's still not done. So we have to kind of learn how to put all these little puzzle pieces together, which is a lot of what we'll be doing in this class. Our goals of the class are gaining more confidence in how to use astrology to filter out investment decisions. Those can be long-term investment decisions. It could be short-term trading decisions. And there are people that are even day traders. And I'm trying not to teach that kind of information anymore because I don't think day trading works. And I think it turns into gambling, and eventually you overtrade and it doesn't work. Ultimately, all of you need to trade and invest from your own intuition and knowledge. I mean, if you pick up my newsletter and it's helpful, great. But if you think something else, you always have to trade from what you know and think. And absolutely, I'm just kind of I put out maps for people. I give them information. Lately, I don't even recommend that many specific trades because everybody trades differently. They have different sizes of accounts. They trade different vehicles, and the markets are 24 hours. Gold used to have $10 or $20 ranges, and now it has $100 range overnight. So it's just really kind of a whole new world. So I put out numbers and patterns in my newsletter and time cycles, and I let you figure out what to do, and you ultimately have to make those decisions yourself. I can't really teach all of that to you, and I can't do that in this course. And I can recommend trading courses for you, but it's there's a lot to learn. So when we use astrology in financial analysis, it gives you more confidence reading a pattern. Sometimes, like if you see a double top, you're kind of wondering, is it going to make a new high, or do we sell the double top? And if the astrology looks better for another week, then you're thinking, well, it's going to have a minor pullback, and then it's still going to keep going up. So that's astrology can kind of help us. Same thing with double bottoms and things like that. So this basically, when we get to a pattern, that's why we have to study pattern a little bit. We'll do that today too. We have to decide, is the astrology telling us that we should invest in that vehicle because the astrology looks good for another 2 or 3 weeks, or is the astrology suddenly drying up and we're in trouble? And there are times when the astrology is gray. I say we have 1,000 shades of gray in astrology. We get some blacks and we get some whites. White is kind of a ghost signal. It's for sure it's going to go up. Black is for sure it's going to go down. And certainly I like to trade those white and black signals, but more often than not we get 1,000 shades of gray, and we have to learn how to discern how much black is in the gray and how much white is in the gray, and what are our chances of it going up more or it going down more. So that's something I started doing a little bit in some of my earlier financial astrology courses, the transit class and the daily looking at the markets. And again, you can always pick those classes up, and we'll continue some of that in this course. But this course is a little bit more combining real-time markets more. So here's an hourly chart of Bitcoin. People are still fascinated by Bitcoin. Personally, I partly doesn't trust Bitcoin. I've talked to people that they want to take money out of their Coinbase account, and Coinbase says, well, we can get you your money in a month. Okay, well, yuck. How liquid is that? What happens if there's a crisis? I mean, we're not in a crisis with Bitcoin, and people are having that experience. And then when you go to the supermarket, you have to use these expensive credit card converters, and they charge you 20%. So I part of me is not. I think Bitcoin will probably be a vehicle when the financial system fails over the next couple of years, but they're going to have to really find a way to make it liquid. Otherwise, it's really like how do you buy groceries with it? So we have to look at, this is some of my colleagues always teach classes on this, price pattern and time. We like price pattern and time to kind of line up. What I want to show you here is this is a chart of Bitcoin today. It's an hourly chart. So it had bottomed a little about 59,000 last week, and it went up to 67,000. And it kind of, when it took out 65 this week, I told people, well, I think it's done and we can buy pullbacks. I still kind of feel that way. When we look at the Elliott wave pattern, it's only fallen in 3 ways. We're going to look at that in a minute. And so really, if it starts taking out 62,000 this weekend, and it does trade in cash over the weekend, then we're still wondering if it's going to go to that to make a new low or a double bottom. But if not, you think you have a buy signal here. And we have to look at the astrology to help us with that. So you get into these gray areas with pattern. This is an example where you have to decide, how do I make a decision? Do I buy Bitcoin because it fell in 3 ways? It went to support, it showed signs of bottoming by taking out 65 this week. What's my risk reward? And we'll look at this chart in more detail. So this whole thing is that we have to learn how to combine price, pattern, and time. And that helps us. A lot of people only trade by price. I'm going to buy Tesla because it went to 420, and that's my magic number. Well, it went to 396, and it may go to 380. And when you just use price to buy something because you think it's a good number, or you think it's a value, or you just want to get in, you only have one piece of information. Pattern is what a lot of traders use. I use Elliott Wave, and I'll teach you a little bit about Elliott Wave. And Elliott Wave is a nice map. It tells you where you are in the pattern, and I use it quite a bit, and I can use the astrology to filter out if what the pattern's saying. There are a lot of people who use Elliott Wave, and they're sure it's going to make a fifth wave higher, and I look at the astrology and I say, nope, it's done. That was a C wave, and we're in trouble. So, but the point is, we have to kind of patterns kind of very important because it's a map. It tells us where we are, and stuff like that. And then time is. There are other types of timing besides astrology. There are people that do cyclical timing. There's certain, like in the cattle market, there's a 45-week cycle for some reason. And in certain markets, there are regular cycles. Sometimes they are astrological cycles. And there are people that, have businesses based on timing models. There are seasonal patterns. Stock market tends to go down in March and September for some reason, and it's just something that always happens. And if you look back at 100 years of data, statistically, that's what kind of happens. And there are other seasonal patterns, particularly in things like the grain markets. Grains often top in June, and then enough rain falls and they sell them off, and sometimes they go down into harvest. Sometimes there's a sudden drought and they come back to life. But they're kind of seasonal patterns in a lot of markets, just because of buying and selling. There's also kind of daily patterns. I know sometimes I've noted this on my classes, that for some reason Bitcoin seems to fall on Thursdays. Last Thursday that didn't work, but I would say probably 80% of the time Bitcoin seems to be down on Thursdays. Now, I could give you an astrological reason why, but if you want to go short Bitcoin, and it's at a key number on Wednesday, you're probably going to make money into Thursday 8 out of 10 times, and I've noticed that with other markets too, and it's something I share in my classes, but that's an aspect of timing. It gives you another reason to buy or sell. And then there's in astrology, we often look at astrological aspects, which often become turning points. We'll look at that a little bit later too. Astrology is an aspect of time to help people with timing. So price analysis, I think I've talked about this, establishes structure, trends, support, resistance. Is the market going up or is the market going down? And let's see. This is a weekly chart of Bitcoin. Now, if you don't pay attention to these kind of charts, and you think, oh, Bitcoin is always going up. Well, it's been going down pretty much since these highs, which I forgot exactly when that came in, but on a weekly basis, it keeps making lower lows. Is it done? I mean, a lot of people are thinking, oh God, 60,000, it's a good number. It's, they started buying it at 60,000. Is it done? Well, the Elliott wave pattern doesn't look like it's done. And we look at the cycles, and I think cryptos are very connected to K2. K2 is in Leo, and the natal chart for Bitcoin has Saturn in Leo. And this K2 Saturn association, which is where things fall apart, has not been good for Bitcoin. And until K2 gets out of Leo in November, I think, we're going to probably go to 40,000 or 30,000, and people are going to be pretty upset. But that's probably what's going to happen. We're still due for a rally to 70,000, maybe 80,000, but not right away. I mean, right, it should be happening, but into June. But so let me go back to the other slides. So anyway, price, pattern, and time are these kind of three things that we need to look at. And I always like, I always like to think that markets are puzzles. I have a lot of Gemini in me. Geminis love puzzles. I've got Jupiter in Gemini. I love solving puzzles. But markets are like puzzles. What's the market doing? And we just looked at the Bitcoin chart. It's been going down every week. The trend is down. I mean, if you're bottom picking and hoping it's going to go up wildly, you're going to be in trouble at some point, right? What shape is the move taking? Markets, people talk about patterns, head and shoulder patterns, and different kind of patterns, congestion patterns. You have to kind of know all that stuff and look at charts. And I can't teach it to you. I can give you books. I can do a little bit with it, but it's an important part of everything that we do. When is a move most likely to change? Well, pattern tells us something about that. Elliott wave pattern tells us that. Astrology confirms. One of the secrets I'll share with you today is that planetary aspects between two planets that are very connected to the commodity are going to often create a major turn in that commodity at a major conjunction or an opposition or a major aspect. So, so if we're coming into a major aspect and we have an Elliott wave pattern completion and the market's overbought and we're starting to think of taking profits, we move our stops up, or we just get out because we've made nice money and we see changes coming. There's not a lot of reasons to stick around. And prediction is not certainty. Markets can go up longer than your margin broker will allow you to have, and that's why money management is really important. I mean, the people that get into the most trouble trading are people who say, well, it's got to go up. I'm going to hold on to it. I know it's going to come back. Well, suddenly you're down 50%, 60%, and you're saying, well, I lost all this money. Let me wait for it to come back. And maybe sometimes it doesn't. I gave the example last week about so I was talking about SpaceX and the IPO, and IPOs don't always go up indefinitely. The first year, Facebook, which became Meta, opened in the 40s, and then it went to 10. And it was, if you bought the IPO at 40, you were down 75%. Airbnb, another famous failure, was in the 250s for a couple weeks when it had its IPO, and now it's in the 130s, and it's just never come back. And I know people who bought it at 250 and they were thinking, it's going to go to 400, it's going to 500. Well, it's just SpaceX. Elon Musk just said, well, maybe in 2030, which is 5 years off, in a perfect world, maybe we'll have $1 trillion of revenue, but then that's still half of its market cap. We always have to keep fundamentals in the back of our mind too. But more people don't trade on fundamentals. I mean, Jupiter in Cancer is very expansive. People think it's going to the moon. But what happens when Jupiter hits Pluto on July 19th? We will see. But it's kind of it's kind of like this. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit about Elliott wave. We have to know some type of pattern structure to look at. Elliott wave was developed by a man called R.N. Elliott, and he lost all this money in the Depression, and he started studying the history of patterns in the stock market. And he published a book, Elliott Wave Theorist, and a number of people have picked up on his work. And he basically said that markets rally in a 5-wave pattern in a bull market, and they correct in a 3-wave pattern. And in a bear market, markets fall in a 5-wave pattern, and they correct in a 3-wave pattern. So basic Elliott wave, and there's a lot more to it. We look for 5 waves up, and then a 3-wave pullback, which is called ABC. And there are certain rules around this. This is your basic pattern. Markets go up in 5 waves. 1, 2, 3, consolidate, 4, 5, done. And then they correct in 3 ways. A, B, C. And corrects, doesn't correct all the way. Sometimes it can correct all the way, but not too much. So there's a lot more to Elliott waves. This is kind of the basic idea. But people like to catch the 3rd wave. The 3rd wave is when it kind of takes off and it moves the most. And when you ride the 3rd wave, you make the most money. And kind of like Micron lately may have been still probably in a 3rd wave, where it just goes, it doesn't pull back and it keeps going up gangbusters, and you just don't know where to get in. And some people love 3rd waves, but you can also get killed in a 3rd wave if you're not in the right direction, because they just don't stop. So there are kind of rules for Elliott waves. The 2nd wave can retrace the bottom. So in terms of trading markets, we usually we see the market bottom. We're kind of convinced of it that it's bottom. It goes up in 5 ways, a little 5-wave pattern on the wave 1 level, pulls back in 3 ways. And we want to buy here because we don't have that much risk to the bottom. We have a nice setup here. We're not risking too much money. If it takes out the old low, we put a stop there. And then if it's going to take off in the 3rd wave, we're ready for launching. So there are services that kind of look for these kind of situations, and they do happen, and everybody wants them. They don't happen all the time, and when we have so many markets and so many stocks, you really have to look hard for them. That's a whole science. Sometimes you get these consolidation patterns. So the 4th wave usually sometimes it can do with a triangle pattern. You've seen those before, and you're not sure when it's going to end. There are rules for knowing when it's going to end, and then they'll do a final push up, which we always want to catch, and then we have to take profits. And then if it's still a long-term bull market, it's still going to have a nice pullback, and we usually like to buy the pullback and wait for the next advance. So there's this whole thing about pattern. And there are all these rules about Elliott wave. The 3rd wave is the 3rd wave can never be the shortest. It can be the same length as the 1st wave. The 5th wave cannot be the shortest either. So there are ways to kind of measure Elliott waves, and this is how you project price. And again, I'm not teaching a class on this, but you should be aware of this. It can help you with patterns. An uptrend is labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with an ABC pullback. We saw that, and things like that. And then sometimes you get these complicated patterns. Let's look at Bitcoin again. I should have brought you a longer chart, but Bitcoin completed 5 ways up on the weekly chart, and that means it has to do something bigger, which means that once it had done that, when it went up to about 120,000, and you could figure that out, that you knew it was kind of going to do something bigger to the downside. And that's what it's been doing. And a lot of people have kept thinking, well, it's going to go to 1 million, and it's certainly going to double. And they kept getting in, and they're getting killed. Pattern and cycles keep you out of trouble. Now, Bitcoin is ruled by K2, and I realized this year that one of the factors is that when you look at the Bitcoin chart, which we looked at in my monthly webinar, K2, the Bitcoin chart has Saturn in Leo, and when K2 went over the natal Saturn, whenever you have K2 Saturn connecting, it's the words are things fall apart. If you go into K2 Saturn dasha period, or even in transit over in your natal chart, things could be really kind of a hard time. But anyway, so I think K2 in Leo is not good for the market. So when K2 gets out of Leo in November, I think we have a bottom, and I think this goes also with the NASDAQ falling sharply into November. So I am not rushing for an investment position in Bitcoin because I think I'm looking for a bounce into July. NASDAQ's due to bounce into July, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And this is a little fourth wave. Now, the minimum bounce area is only 70,000. At this point, 80,000 would be extended, but it's not going to take out this area, and then it will come down again. And so we want to buy it at 30 or 40,000 in the fall. Here's an hourly chart of Bitcoin. I showed you that chart earlier. If you're a short-term trader, do you buy Bitcoin today? Market's closing in a little bit, but I guess the cash market's always trading. I don't have the latest quote on it, but usually an Elliott wave, you get 3 waves down, and the first wave equals the second one. This is called ABC. The A wave is equal to the C wave. So when you measure this, you can project that an ABC down should hold 62, which it's done. So I suspect that there is a trader buy here in Bitcoin. It fell into Thursday. I told people to wait until Thursday. It's fallen in 3 ways. And the risk is if it takes out 59,000 and goes to 55,000, there's a small chance it could. But we have to take a risk here. At least we got a pullback. We're not chasing at 67 when it may only go to 70, and the projection may only be 70 here. But the astrology, because we like NASDAQ, up for another rung higher to 33,000. We think Bitcoin may go with NASDAQ. I mean, I do have some concerns. I also follow a stock called Mr., which basically has they own a lot of Bitcoin, and a lot of people trade Mr. instead of Bitcoin. But Mr. looks like it needs to go lower to 103 or even 90. So that gives me, I originally have another possible low for the stock market on the 25th. So part of me is, here's what I'm thinking. First of all, this is a trader's play. This is not an investor's play. If I'm a trader, I've got to risk the trade below 59,000. There may be a good risk reward here. When I look at IBIT, which is the ETF for Bitcoin, it's doesn't look like it's done. So part of me wants to be patient with it. It's a counter trend trade. I don't need to bottom fish a counter trend trade. Investment play, I can buy early because it's going to go up. Maybe Bitcoin will be up until 2027, 2028 with the investment crisis. Then, yeah, in November, if it's 40,000, I'm buying some. I'm adding at 30,000. That's an investment play. But for a trading play, it's going up to 70,000. There's a little bit of money to make, but I can be patient with it. Are there better things out there, Micron? Okay. Here's how we might look at Elliott wave and gold. A lot of people thought, okay, gold's bottom. It went up to 4,040. Almost went up to 4,400 on Monday when they announced the peace accord, and everybody was all excited, and then it started coming down again. And the Federal Open Market Committee came out yesterday, and they were more hawkish. Half the governors think they should raise rates into the end of the year. Gold doesn't like inflation, so gold's kind of been acting funky. So what we do is there are 2 possibilities. I mean, there's a minimum pullback on gold to like 42.70 or 42.10 or something. And we had a big pullback today. And if you're buying on price, you think, oh, I'm going to buy that pullback because it's going to go to 5,000. Or do you look at the astrology, and what does the astrology say? Well, when we look at next week's astrology, this is a low I have for July 25th. again, aspects are very important in Vedic astrology, even if they're Western aspects, and they're not full Vedic aspects. 75% aspect between two planets is, it's considered a 75% aspect in Vedic astrology, but it's powerful for the collective consciousness. So notice how Neptune is at 954 Gemini. I'm sorry, Sun is at 954 Gemini, and Neptune's at 10.9 Pisces. And there's a 75-degree angle, there's a square, which is a 9-degree angle in people who like angles between Neptune and Saturn. And it's exact toward the close on June 25th. We should also note that Mercury is going into Pisces probably Monday, Tuesday of this week. That's a transit we should note. It's forming the Saraswati Yoga when we have 3 benefics in the same sign, in the sign of Cancer. It's very nice. Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter. Nice time. People are optimistic, euphoria in the markets. So we're looking at that. Got Mars aspecting the moon on the 25th. It's an 8th house aspect from Taurus to Libra. Mars usually, moon doesn't like to get hit by Mars usually. We also still have Saturn moving into a sextile aspect with Mars, but that's something for later in June and July. So we're looking at that now. When we look at the astrology for next week, when we're trying to decide is gold up or down, should we be buying today, we're seeing Sun square Neptune into June 25th. We look at last year, gold made a 12-day low. It was down 12 days into that aspect. When a market is down that many days into a major aspect, that seems significant. So I'm paying attention to that Sun square Neptune on June 25th as being a bearish aspect. So I'm thinking gold has a chance to make new lows. So the old low on gold was down here at 40.30, I think, or 40.60 last week. The pattern on Elliott wave would look a lot better if we went to at least 39.95. The stop line could go as low as 38.40. It could even crash, all the way in this area. So there's all kinds of ways to determine where it's going to stop. But the point is, I think a new low is coming, and so I'm not buying gold. When we look up the history of Mercury in Cancer last year, when Mercury went into Cancer, the first few days of Mercury in Cancer was bearish. Mercury goes into Cancer on the 22nd. Last year, when Mercury went into Cancer, the first 4 days were bearish. Something, minor. You'd have to really look at that 20 times and maybe to see that Mercury in Cancer is bearish. But seasonally, it makes sense. For some reason, gold often has seasonal lows at the end of June. Look, go back and study it. Sometimes the end of July also, but definitely the end of June. I often get lows at the end of June. Another thing that works really well is that heliocentric astrology is very important, and that heliocentric astrology is obviously, if you were at the center of the sun, what are the planets? Now, Mercury takes 89 days to go around the sun, even though, it may take a full year from the Earth, like it's going through. But and then we've got the retrogrades. But Mercury, if you're in the middle of the sun, Mercury takes 89 days to go around the sun. And it turns out, you can study this statistically, every time Mercury goes into heliocentric Sagittarius, gold tends to go up. I mean, this worked last January, and when I pointed it out, I just see it over and over again. So that transit is starting June 25th to July 5th. Now, it may not start exactly on June 25th, but I'm thinking it's still probably safe to be short gold until at least we get heliocentric Mercury into Sagittarius. We also, on June 26th, we have a Sun, a 6-8 relationship, which is called a quincux, between the Sun and Pluto. Now, Vedic astrology doesn't always pay attention to those oddball aspects, but in financial astrology, they are important with outer planets. So last time we had Sun quincux Pluto last year, we had a low in gold maybe within a day of the 26th. So it's also telling us that the end of next week has a bunch of reasons that gold could be lower. And then when we look at gold seasonally, it tends to make lows into the end of June. And often, for some reason, the funds often sell gold off from about the 25th of the month to the 30th of the month. So this is what we like to do. We like to stack our astrology. I said Bitcoin is like nebulous next week, but gold is pretty clear. There are like 5 things that suggest that gold is going to make a new low, that there's no rush to buy it on this pullback at 42.10, and that chances are we'll get to buy it at a new low. And this is probably an investment low. This is probably the lowest price that gold will be for a number of years. And even if it does a retest or something, which I'm not sure it's going to do, we are kind of reaching an important investment opportunity for gold. And this year, gold could easily be at 6,000. Long-term projections over 2 years up to 10,000. So this buying gold at 4,000 is still kind of a nice thing to do. And there are other ways to invest in gold. You can buy ETFs like GLD. You can buy gold miner stocks, which sometimes have different rhythms, like GDX or IHV. But there are other ways to invest in gold. But but the thing is, this is how the astrology helps you make a decision. When you have maybe 5 things telling you that you should wait to be a buyer, that you don't need to rush, you're going to wait because you've got 5 reasons. So that's, the big thing will happen is when we get to the 25th and we have to see where we are in the pattern. If the pattern isn't done, we have to decide, do I buy some and then I add more? If it goes down, it does a little bit more. And that's what you have to do when you fine tune trading. Okay. Okay, stock market. So I'm going to take a pause. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to take a pause for questions here, and I'm going to unmute you. And I sometimes have trouble with the controls on this because they're new. So give me a moment to unmute you. I can unmute you individually. I can unmute you as a group, and I'm trying to see what's going on here. Okay, I did this. Okay, here it is. Allow everybody to unmute. So I'm unmuting all of you, so you should be able to take your microphones. And if you're having trouble, you see your microphone, you can unmute. And so if you want a question, Diana has a question first. Diana, you have a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, speak up a little bit, but.
Yes, Rahu, I think in December, Rahu is going into Capricorn. Do you think
Correct.
that will affect the technology sector? Because I think the impression that I get is that because Rahu has been in Aquarius, which it rules, that has inflated the technological sector, the shares.
Exactly.
So
That's a good, yes, exactly. So before Rahu went into Aquarius, they kept saying, well, buy biotech stocks. Sadabhishak Nakshatra is connected to biotech. Aquarius is connected to technology. It's the sign of technology, also co-owned by Uranus, technology and electricity and airlines and things like that. So yeah, Rahu creates greed, and this is why we're having, and you also have had a Jupiter aspect to Rahu, right? Jupiter and Gemini has been aspecting Aquarius. So we're starting to move a little bit away. Jupiter is no longer aspecting Rahu. And Rahu is actually going to go into Dhanishta Nakshatra, which is not as friendly as Sadabhishak, which is a technology nakshatra. So I think we have another push up in technology and semiconductors into early July, but I think something will happen. Suddenly, and we've had a couple, we had a big fall even last week because it was just, but I'm not sure that you have to wait for Rahu in Capricorn for that decision.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Because
Okay.
also, can I ask another question? Otherwise, if someone else has a
Sure.
question, I can.
Ideally, it's good to ask questions about what we've talked about. Sometimes in my, if you sign up for my monthly practicum about the general markets, that's a better place to. I'm willing to take a question. You're a dear old student of mine, but go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to to stop you there. Go ahead.
Oh, well, and Saturn also, when he goes into the fifth house, because of into areas, that's the fifth house of the US, that can also affect the stock market, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that's one thing you could look at, and that's next June, June of 2027. I think the top of the stock market's coming next month, actually, and I've talked about that in my monthly webinar. And if you pick up my newsletter or read my column, I talk about that. I don't think. I mean, those are general broad things that are like bigger, and that you can absolutely see. But there are probably other factors happening ahead of that. Okay?
Thank you, Barry.
Good question. Good to have you here. Other questions? Again, you have your mics, and I'm going to leave you unmuted. Sid, do you have a question? Do you know how to take have you found the mic to unmute? Good, Sid. I see that you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Barry, thank you for the opportunity. I have a question. You said like Sun square Neptune is bearish, Mercury into Cancer is bearish. Is it like, how do you do this analysis? Is it like you do quantitatively, or you just follow, since it's a square aspect, it's bearish?
No, okay,
Cancer.
yeah. Sometimes you can be logical about these things. I think you have to be empirical. Like if because we have AI and computers, you could actually probably feed in data and say the last 20 times Sun squared Neptune, what was the impact on gold? How many days did it go down into that aspect? Did it reverse out of that aspect? So ideally, and there are times that I've done this to come up with some of the data that I do use, you study as much as you can, because if like there's a 92% correlation between trines between Venus and Uranus. Now, we wouldn't normally pay attention to a trine between Venus and Uranus, but for my Western astrological friends, there's a 92 correlation with stock market highs, or turns at least. And I've watched it over the years, and it works. And if you know Uranus, it's in higher aspect of Mercury, and Mercury governs stock shares, and Venus expands price. So, it's very logical, and if you study it, it works. So, yeah, you can go back. I've gotten lazy sometimes. I tend to go back and look at last year because I'm getting more exact signal comparisons. So Neptune has only been in Pisces a little while. I think the year before it wasn't in Pisces. I'm trying to remember. So to get a square, there's a difference between Sun squaring Neptune between Aquarius and Taurus, and Sun squaring Neptune between Pisces and Gemini. And there are rules for understanding that, and there are books that I have on it. But sometimes you try to get the best comparison. Okay, good question. Thank you, Sid.
One more question.
Yes.
Do we know which aspect, which stock? Like,
yeah. These are okay. This is this is material that, I've been studying this for 40 years, and there are a few books that I have on it, and I make them available in my classes. You can get an out of print book by Butany called Forecasting Prices. He wrote it in 1958. Butanay. You can get it on Scribed, but he did a nice study of different things. I've created my own. I have 30 years, 40 years watching this stuff. I've created my own things. In the course we have a cookbook. So what planets are most important for certain things. Like for grains, we look at Mercury and Venus, and the most is Saturn important? Yeah, if it aspects Mercury. Is Jupiter important? Yeah, if it aspects Mercury. But there's certain in Vedic astrology we call karakas for the commodities, and even in technology has a karaka. Whether it's in individual stocks, sometimes have natal charts. All stocks are governed by Mercury. Technology stocks may have more of kind of a Rahu component with Mercury. If you run a chart of Tesla, I think it's a Leo rising, so suddenly you have to look at that chart. So there are multiple things, and again, I have 2 other courses that we taught in the last year where we went over some of this material. They are available to purchase. You can email me, and some of it I will provide for you as catch-up material for my new students if you take this class. Okay. Thanks, Sid. Other questions? Okay, Alice, did you have a question? No. Okay, I think we're good.
No, I'm sorry.
Jonna, you have a question? I see you. Did you want to take the mic? Jonna, do you need help unmuting?
I'm sorry if I think that might have been I accidentally pressed the thing to raise my hand. I don't have a question, but I'm really enjoying the class. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jonna. Good to have you here, and I've missed you. Please. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see if I get the PowerPoint back up. So are you all seeing this slide that says stock market on it? Could somebody, like Christy, can you get on the mic and make sure that it's moving? Or somebody
Yeah,
who's got
Yeah,
it's
it's
moving.
working.
It's moving, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I've had this problem. We GoToWebinar changed their format. Okay, so let's look at the stock market. We're going to spend about 5 weeks on the stock market because everybody's interested in the stock market, although suddenly it won't be interesting if it goes down. So the stock market's chart is a Cancer rising. It's actually 5 degrees of Cancer. And we're going to have Jupiter exactly going over its exact degree of exaltation and the ascendant of the stock market in late June, early July. So you would think that's probably significant. Yes. We also, in the stocks are ruled by Mercury. Stockbrokers are ruled by Mercury. It's just something that you learn and you observe. I always find my Virgo and Gemini friends are really into stocks and not gold. And, it's just you tend to trade things you like. So Mercury and Jupiter are together in the sign of Cancer, with also Venus. This is kind of rare. It's a Saraswati yoga. Whenever you have 3 benefic planets in the same sign together, this is why we talked about June is the best month of the year. It's a euphoric month. Now, there can be some problems with it, but Saraswati yoga feels, everything's wonderful. It's comfortable. And so everything's wonderful. Everybody's excited. We've got a treaty with Iran. The world's saved. My gasoline prices are going down. My stocks are going to go to the moon. This is kind of what we're happening with Jupiter euphoria. Mercury Jupiter is going to increase euphoria. So we've got all these things setting up. Now, what happens? Suddenly, we have Mars conjunct Uranus on July 4th. Uranus has a lot to do with stock shares because it also is connected to Aquarius and technology. Mars-Uranus aspects often cause earthquakes or unexpected fires or something. I in my class last week, I said, kind of worried that we've got our July 4th celebration. Are the bad fundamentalists going to come out and try to upset things? Already they foiled this plot for the wrestling match, which I know was a little absurd, but this is the type of thing. There are a lot of people that kind of hate our country too. So whether they're foreign people or they're domestic people, but Mars Uranus can stir things up. We've got that happening. I do think NASDAQ has the best chance for making a new high, maybe to 32,000. It's trading just above 30,000 now. It still could go up another 10%. Sometimes at the end of a big move, the market moves the most. Maybe it will hold up a little bit longer, but I think there's still room. There is a chance that it could fall into that Sun square Neptune. I'm kind of starting to think that it won't, but if it did, it still would be a buy for a couple weeks. So you kind of look at the astrology and you see what's happening. We have the stock market falling from August to November, and there are a lot of we've talked about this on the monthly meetings. The stock market's been going up since the 30s, and it's been going up since the 2000 since 1980, since the 87 crash. It's been going up since the 2003 bottom. It's been going up since the 2020 COVID bottom. And all these patterns are suggesting on Elliott wave that a large third wave that's taken 70, 80 years, 90 years, God, 94 years to complete. The stock market goes back to 1792. This whole big move is it doesn't mean the stock market's done forever, but a huge pattern is being completed that began in 1932, and that means that we're going to have a multi-year bear market. So everybody thinks that you can keep investing in stocks and they'll be there for your retirement. I'm not so sure. And there are always stocks that do well. Maybe these AI stocks will keep going to the moon because people, there are always stocks that do well even in a bear market, and that's a whole thing to figure out. But I do think that we're on borrowed time for the stock market. Here's a chart of the S&P futures, the September contract. It's it bottomed a few days ago, bottomed last week actually, and we've had a little pullback into yesterday when the Federal Reserve scared everybody, and the pattern still says that in the Elliott wave, the fifth wave should go to about 79,000. We may have the S&P is not my favorite thing to buy at the moment. For those of you who watch the Max 7 stops, they're all really kind of failing. Meta has been in the toilet for a while. Microsoft is going down with software stocks. Google even had been doing really well, and they're in trouble. All the mega stocks are kind of in trouble, and they in the past they've pushed the S&P up. So can the S&P even go up with just Micron and Nvidia, which is also kind of starting to fail? So at this point, if we buy things as a trader point of view, we better buy something that still has a lot of wheels left. Micron projects 1,600. Tesla's been failing, so you're at the point where even finding anything to buy for even a trader, you have to do it carefully. And I look, there are things out there, and there are things that will do well even, if the stock market tops, but it's tiring. Okay. Okay. So that's the stock market, and we look at Elliott wave, we can look at the astrology, and we can see how we put together a forecast. And when we do the stock market for another 4 or 5 weeks, starting at our next class, we'll have to look at a lot more advanced things. There's long-term timing, there's short-term timing, there's daily timing, there's picking stocks, there's picking sectors, there's, the stock market's going to be a huge topic, and a fascinating one. Okay. So in my first class, I did something called making calendars. And every time you get into buying a stock or a commodity or timing a bottom or a top or even an entry, you kind of want to know what's happening on a daily basis. And so I tell people to chart time. And we had a class on this in the fall, and I can replay that for people who take the class. But we have to kind of chart time. And we can, I like to do that. I've got my camera off, so I actually buy a Western astrological calendar because it has all the aspects in it. I fill in the Vedic aspects and then I add all the Vedic data. And I recently created a chart where, and I didn't fill this in yet, but I look at the moon every day, what nakshatra it's in. I look at changes in the Navamsha, even like Venus debilitated in Virgo Navamsha suddenly goes into Libra Navamsha. Price falls in Virgo Navamsha because it's a debilitation area, even on the Navamsha level, and then it goes into Libra and it's happy, and so you get you like to see small changes in the Navamsha chart, debilitated Mars in the Navamsha, things like that. It makes a difference on a daily basis. Major aspects is the most important part of financial astrology, even Western aspects, even timing funny 6-8 aspects like quincunxes, and certainly major aspects like trines, between Jupiter and other planets, and major aspects of Saturn, and some aspects are slow and some aspects are fast, and you have to understand all of that. Minor aspects, well, the moon has minor aspects, moon conjunct Mars, moon in opposition Saturn, moon conjunct Mercury, moon conjunct Rahu. So we like to know those. Those may help give you an idea if it's an up day or a down day, if you've got some really bad aspect happening. I think yesterday we had, I don't know what we had. But anyway, heliocentric astrology I mentioned. I tell people to buy heliocentric ephemeris. Heliocentric aspects are important. They often preclude geocentric aspects. It could be a whole lecture, and I haven't even given it yet. And then the Panchanga is important. This is how I started Vedic studying financial astrology. What's the lunar day? What's the half lunar day? What's the relationship between the sun and the moon called the Nitya Yoga? What day of the week is it happening on? All these things have an influence because everything happens on a daily basis. So I suggest you make a Western calendar, and some of the things that you look at for creating a calendar are what is the ruler of the day? Now, there's a difference between a Monday when the moon's exalted and a Monday when the moon's debilitated. Watch it. There's a difference when the moon's exalted, when the moon's full on a Monday, and there's a difference when the moon's a new moon on a Monday. Those are kind of general things. There's a difference when the moon's conjunct Saturn on a Monday and the moon's conjunct Jupiter on a Monday. So what's going on with the moon on a Monday? And is it waning? Is it waxing? Those are things that influence, are we happy that day? The moon is about happiness. Is it afflicted? Are we not happy that day? If it's a Thursday like today, I teach on Thursdays. It's ruled by Jupiter. I get a lot of Jupiter energy for teaching, and it works. And Jupiter is exalted today, and the stock market's very happy. Is what's going on with Jupiter today? It's moving toward exaltation at 5 degrees this week into next week. We talked about the moon. What's the moon doing? Is it a new moon? Is it a waning moon? Is it conjunct Venus? Is it conjunct Mercury? We have to know those things. Short-term aspects. Every day the moon goes into a different nakshatra. There's a difference between Jyeshta, where the stock market almost always goes down, and Rohini, which is in Taurus, where the stock market's often higher. The nakshatras color the energy of the day, and daily transits of the moon color the markets and color how we feel. Worth watching. Navamsha transits. Suddenly, Venus is debilitated in Navamsha. In Virgo Navamsha, in the middle of the day, it goes into Libra Navamsha. Suddenly people were depressed and the markets were down, and suddenly they feel better. Venus Navamsha happens, particularly on a Friday. You have to pay attention to those little things. They make a difference. Big thing is, what are the major aspects doing? I told you about Sun square Neptune next week. I mean, there's always some major aspect going on. My newsletter outlines them. We've got, and you look at retrogrades. Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th of June. Markets often change direction when Mercury goes retrograde, and And you sometimes you think it's going to be a high, but it comes in as a low, and so then it goes up afterwards. So you have to kind of see what's going on into an aspect. Sometimes the change of trend with a major aspect can be 6 to 24 hours later. So Sun square, when you look at the history, I told you about Sun quincunx Pluto, which is on the 26th. In the past, lows were made for gold a day after that on average. But you want to collect 10 years of data if you really want to feel good about it. So generally, you want to get a feel, is the day more positive or more negative? What commodities are affected? I started this journey because I would turn on the Financial News Network and I would see gold was up, but cocoa was down, and sugar was up, but the stock market was down. And I kept thinking, why the difference? What's going on? And I just, I had to study every market and know what it impacted, and that came out as my course in my cookbook. And so I have a cookbook on what markets affect every commodity, and the stock market's it's the hardest animal, and there's so many different kinds of stocks, but that's why we have to spend about 5 weeks on it. So it's good to chart what's happening on any given day, because on any given day you have to decide, is it a low? Is the market oversold? Is the market going to be up the next day? So you even knowing what's happened on a daily basis is important. I teach all my students to do that. I don't want to do that for day trading, but you still, to make an entry, do I wait a day? Do I wait? You have to decide. You can look at price, you can look at pattern, and then you want the timing to confirm. Looking at gold, I have a lot of reasons to wait until next week to buy gold. If I miss it, I'm wrong, and I'm not right about everything all the time. But you like to do your statistics. Okay, so let's look at today's energy. And I suggest people do this every day. Run a chart for every day and then chart it. And we have Mercury in Gemini and Purnavasu. Purnavasu is ruled by Jupiter. So it's a very kind of expansive, abundant cycle. It's also Virgotama. It's in Gemini Navamsha, which is very powerful. And the stock market's up quite a bit today. And, you kind of potentially, it was a little bit, last night it was tricky because stock market closed and the FOMC was hawkish. And then right after that, if you weren't watching the news, the truce was signed and this market started going up. And then you kind of really, you still weren't quite sure if it was a retrace. And I still haven't written about it today. Is it a retracement today? There's a possibility it was only going to retrace to 75.10 on the S&P, or is it still going to make a new low next week? I mean, those are things that we have to figure out. But when we look at today, a lot of good things. Venus and the moon and Jupiter together. Moon's in its own sign. It's in Ashlesha Nakshatra, which is not as friendly. Well, it has its own kind of energies, but Moon, Venus, Jupiter are usually kind of pretty happy together. Hopefully it feels like a happy day for you. And nothing significant with Saturn. Mars is starting to move toward the end of a sign. It's going to move into Taurus on the 20th, and we have to make note of that. As it moves to the end of the sign, it kind of grows weak. We're also coming into the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year, and there are rhythms and energies for the solstices, and markets often can have changes around the solstices. Gian used to talk about that. So we would even note that that's coming up. We wrote an article on that this week about the solstice, how you need to rest more and not try to overdo it. Okay, so that's kind of all I wanted to say today. I did want, this may be the last time I'm teaching this class because I haven't taught it for 10 years and I'm more interested in teaching classes on spiritual astrology, but I started a whole new group of financial astrology students, and I'm going to continue to develop a new course for them. But you want to study live with me, this is your chance. My website, appliedvedicastrology.com, my contact information, and the financial astrology site. You'll see some of my other financial astrology courses that are, I call them canned courses. They're pre-recorded. You watch them as you have time. This is a live course. Live courses, you get to ask questions. If you're not available at 2 p.m. to watch a live class because you're out of town, they are recorded and you're sent the recording within 2 hours by GoToWebinar, and I resend it 24 hours later, and I put it in Dropbox if you want to download it. So those of you who have studied with me, who are on the call, I think you're still unmuted. If you want to share your experience studying financial astrology with me or just studying astrology with me, that would be great for people who don't know me.
Yeah, this is Danielle. I took the prior financial astrology class with Barry, and I learned a lot. It was wonderful. I love the cadence that Barry sets. It's very in depth, and I'm really looking forward to this class to continue on with my studies.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Thank you. That's great. Anybody else would like to share?
I can also, I have taken classes with Barry before in several classes, and I also have taken financial classes before, and I always learn a lot with Barry. He always answers all my questions, and he has always plenty of information about any of the topics that he's teaching.
Thank you, Diana. Yeah, it's good to have you hear your voice again and have you back on. Are you retired now, or are you still teaching?
Oh no, I'm still teaching. I'm still working.
Okay.
No, I still have like, I don't know, 12 more years to retire. So yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about you with Venezuela being freed, and I was so happy.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
so
Venezuela now.
wonderful. So
Yep.
wonderful. Thank you. Any other shares?
Hi, Barry. It's me, Alice. Yeah, I'd be happy to share. You know, I've been studying with Barry for a couple of years or a few years now, and he has so much insight. I mean, the experience and insights that he shares, I haven't heard from other teachers, which is why I continue to keep learning from Barry. Sometimes I can't always make it because the class is during my workday, but I can listen to the tape or the recording when I can. And yeah, you just get a lot out of it, you know. You will have to study it because unless you're not familiar with astrology, it'll take a few times to hear it. I am familiar with Vedic astrology, but I still have to listen to it. So, but I'm actually happy to listen to it because the more I listen to it, the more it sinks in. So thanks, Barry.
Thank you, Alice. Yeah, like any of my classes, you get out as much as you put in. I mean, there's a lot that will come through my classes, but it often takes, when I study with new teachers and it's something totally new, I have to listen to it 2 or 3 times before I get it. And you know, astrology can be like that sometimes. And you know, and you have to kind of, if we're doing financial astrology, you have to kind of test out the concepts. Is it going to work? Has it worked before? And then you don't even know if it's going to work again because we have these X factors. Do they bomb or do they not bomb? You know, do they sign the agreement? Do they break the accord? You know, we got a lot of X factors in our world these days, but it's still, you're a little ahead of the curve with financial astrology. Anybody else like to share? Okay, I want to thank you all for coming. Again, there are many opportunities to study with me if you're not interested in this class. I am teaching foundations on Wednesday at 2 p.m. live, and you can always listen to the tapes. And then on Saturdays, June 27th, I'm teaching Western and Vedic remedies. Now, I'm doing a lot on Western remedies because I have a lot of Western clients and they don't like to chant mantras or go to the temple for pujas, and you have to give them something practical to get out of sufferings. So I have 40 years experience with remedies, and I'm going to be sharing all kinds of amazing things in that class. So it's something to think about for the Saturday class. And I do hope you join me for this class. I don't think it will get taught again, but and I'm doing it because I wanted to redo it from 10 years ago, and I have a whole new group of people interested in this area. So look for a replay of the tape. GoToWebinar. It sometimes goes into the spam filter. There will be a replay with the message about signing up for the class. You can share the tape with a colleague or friend. I don't mind that. We will probably post it to YouTube also, because we like to make it available so people know what we're doing. The course will not be on YouTube. The course is available in Dropbox once you buy it. And again, I thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, you can email me either at, I've got a bunch of emails, but I've got my personal email up, swfort@gmail.com. That's or barry@appliedvedicastrology.com. That's my website. And my trading website, if you're interested in my newsletter, is fortucast.com. Fortucast.com. And okay, so I will officially end this webinar, and look forward to, for people who have signed up for the class, I will be sending you an email. Chances are we will continue next week. With the holidays coming up, there's a chance that I may, and I'm going on vacation over the July 4th weekend. It's possible that we may start after that, but we will get our 12 classes in, and I will send you things to study in the meantime. And if you're new to studying with me, I'll send you extra tapes. Okay, guys, I am going to pause the recording.